Welcome, Doug. And in Austria, we've got George Zhang from Illinois. He's a longtime Windy City Weasel. England's Maxim Popov from Ames, Iowa. France, we have Garry Sturley from Great Britain. Germany, we have Owen Bragdon from Massachusetts. Italy, we have Christian Brown from Peoria, who recently joined the Weasels. Russia, we have Hunter Katcher from New Haven, Connecticut, who I believe recently won European DipCon. Turkey, we have Dave Roberts from Snohomish, Washington. We've got Maxim is the highest rank out of all of these players. Is it Doug? Are you going to tell us about this one?
Yeah, I've got a little information on our players for board 5. George, as you mentioned, is a longtime Weasel. He started playing when he's in high school and joined the Weasels then, and also does some game design in some spare time. He's a fun guy to play a game with. Maxim, I think, is really pretty fantastic player. He's only been playing for 5 months since late March, and he's already made a name for himself as a strong player, which is exciting to see. Excuse me. Gary's been playing for 3 years in a variety of different formats, old school games via zines. So he's been around the block, is what my understanding is. Owen is a longtime player as well. Christian is another new player, only played virtual face-to-face. So it's nice that we're extending to new players that way. I think Hunter is a well-known player. He's a very strong player. He's been playing for quite a long time. You don't get to go over to Europe and win a tournament if you're not a strong player. And I don't have a lot of information on Dave, but it'll be interesting to see how he plays today as a virtual face-to-face player.
All right. Thank you very much. So moving on, we'll go ahead and start in spring of 1901. Doug, you are joining us, so I'll let you pick. Do you want to east or west?
I'll go with the west for this game. I want to track what Maxim is doing.
Fantastic. All right. Well, why don't you lead us off? How do they open in the west?
There's not much controversy here. I would just say these are all relatively standard, effective openings. Nobody's showing their hand. So that's the story of the spring 01 in the West.
All right.
I'll tell you what, the East, it looks like Austria and Russia, being the two more experienced players, have decided to team up. You can tell that they didn't go to Galicia. The Austrians actually did the move to Trieste, which turned out to be really smart because the Italians are trying to slip 2 into the Austrian position there with the follow-up to Venice, and that got blocked. So bouncing black is not terribly surprising. The Russians do decide to go north, which is something you certainly can do if you're going to ally with the Austrians.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of northern Russian openings in this round of the tournament. It's been really interesting to see. And then I've also noticed Christian moving Venice to Trieste. We don't see that a lot in face-to-face. I remember when I used to play online a lot, probably 10, 15 years ago, that was a pretty common way to open. But we've seen a lot less of that just because of how early conflict between those two powers can imbalance things in the favor of the Juggernaut. So,
yeah.
All right. We'll go ahead and stay in the East. We've got David. Why don't you show us what's going on?
He does it again, and this time it works. Wow, gosh, George probably missed the boat on that one. I'm not sure why you would hold in Vienna. It doesn't do anything for you. Why not go to Trieste anyway? So that's a real miscue. I bet he wishes he hadn't done that. The Russian
with the follow-on into Venice.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he did exactly what he tried to do in spring 01. It didn't work. So it's really shocking. And look at the move to Greece to really mess up George with the support of the Turks, it looks like. So, man, that's just a tremendous miscue on George's part to let that Trieste thing happen. Again, I hate to be the harper here, but hold. Probably not. Only if that's the absolute last resort. I mean, what could possibly have been wrong with going to Trieste? It wouldn't have made anybody angry. if he was trying to leave it open for a fleet build, I know we've seen some early fleet builds, but that should be rare to build a fleet this early as the Austrians. Man, Jorge, he's a great player, but this was something I'm sure he wishes he had back.
Doug, anything? What's the large storyline you're seeing coming out of the West?
I'll touch a little bit on Russia convoying over to Sweden. It's not something you see very often. Still don't really have a great sense here of what the alliance structures look like. It's hard to say this early. I would just say people are playing a little cautious, maybe feeling each other out. And until we have a little more to see on the board, that's probably the most interesting thing about this. Everybody doing logical things and probably an arranged bounce in Belgium would be my guess.
Okay, so with our builds, we've got England builds a fleet. We've got 2 fleets from France. We've got 2 fleets from Germany. Don't see that very often. Another Army St. Pete. I've seen quite a bit of that this game. Yeah, everything else is pretty standard. Anything jump out to anybody?
4 fleets in France and Germany combined tells me a sea lion is in the offing.
Yeah, that's not good for Maxim for sure. Tanya makes a good point in the comments. The Italians really should have gotten no builds there. So it's not only is it terrible for George, it's really lucky for Christian that he ended up with a build there.
Yeah, excellent point. All right, so let's find out what happens with all those fleets. Doug, why don't you start us in the West?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty logical. You got a lot of bounces, but that's what's going to happen for a little while at least. I do think Germany perhaps overbuilt the fleet there. I don't think you really needed it, but I'm not going to complain about it. So we're just going to see France and Germany make their play here and see if Maxim can stop them.
He has the Russians on his side, it looks to me like.
I think that's a smart play.
The convoy itself was an anti-German and pro-English thing to do, really, because it kept your fleet in Bothnia, which you can't do anything except to the Germans. So, that gives Maxim some hope, I suppose. Now,
Yeah.
on the eastern side, you do have the Austrians taking Trieste back, which is obviously no surprise. The Italians, though, continue marching. I mean, look, they marched into Greece. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, if you're George there, are you making a deal with Turkey to try and kick the Italian out of Greece, or is that a deal with the devil you don't want to make?
You got to make a deal with Turkey. If the Italians are going to attack you like that, what else can you do? He already had, he thought at least, some kind of friendship with the Russians. So he tried to make friends with the Turks. I mean, an AT can work. At this point, it wasn't really an AT. It was like, who can help me? Anybody can help me? The Italians just screwed me over. Can you help? And the Turks may not say yes. They may say no.
Yeah.
Although if I were the Turks, I don't know that I would love to where the Italian fleets are, but there's probably no way around that.
All right. Oh, let's go ahead and stay in the East, David. Why don't you kick us off?
They did say yes. Look, the Turks did say yes. They went to Greece, which, if I'm Turkey, I probably would say yes there too, honestly. Italians are going to stay even because they took Tunis. The bounce in the black, it's hard to know. My guess is that they're sort of trying to be friendly with each other at this point. That's almost certainly arranged. Look at the Russians. They as I said earlier, that convoy that Doug was talking about to Sweden really was anti-German, and now they've gone to Silesia to double down on the anti-German.
Yeah, leading into the West, thanks, David. I mean, I think Maxim has the opportunity here if he can get France to back off. There's no reason that France can't flip south. He's not committed to the point where, there's no way that makes any sense. You got Italy poking up in Munich, and Galicia went to Silesia. You might think about it as France at this point. You might go that way, because taking England on one as France is a long slog, and I'm with all the anti-German stuff going on, I'm not sure I want to take that on by myself.
And that conversation only happens because Maxim and Hunter chose to work together. If Hunter's not backing Maxim up, then it's a very different story.
Well, another reason all this happened is what I call the giant sucking sound. The Germans building the two fleets meant they didn't have another army they needed to try to not tempt people to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no need to. I mean, the fleet in Kiel has never gotten out. I mean, that could just as easily be an army right now.
Well, he did use it to bounce the Helgoland bite move from the English. It wasn't completely useless, but goodness, it does hurt him now for sure, as you say.
Yeah. All right, we're going into winter of 02. We've got a German build in Munich, a Austrian build in Budapest, a Turkish fleet in Smyrna. Anything stand out in the builds?
No.
Yeah. Pretty standard, what you would expect.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and go to the east, David. We've got a little bit of action over here from Austria, it looks like. What's going on?
Well, yeah, there's action in the sense the Austrians are moving their fleet back down, but they almost have to do that because the fleet's not doing them any good sitting in Trieste. But look at the Italians. Have gone ahead and said, yep, I attacked Austria in spring 01, and I'm still anti-Austria. So let's fight. So it goes to Adriatic, goes to the Ionian. Otherwise, basically docile between the French and the Russians and the Turks. I think that's just sort of a waiting game, knowing that AI is in warfare.
What do you make of the Tyrolia move?
Yeah, well, you're right. I'm sorry, I missed the Tyrolia move. I guess that makes sense. That's why those guys went there. Was to do so. And I think the Italians actually tried to poke into Tyrolia last turn, so this is just a continuation of that. And also the Russians went to Livonia with another army. So again, all caused in some way by the giant sucking sound of not building the second army there and building the two fleets.
Well, and I think also there was a tactical error. Ruhr should have been supporting Munich. When you're sitting there with two on there, why aren't you doing that? I mean, and
particularly if Belgium's going to hold anyway, you're not even getting any position.
Right. Thematically, you've been talking about the hold as an error. And what are you doing with Belgium there? Just holding one army and one supply center is completely useless. Make use of that in a stronger fashion. The rest of the West is really just the commitment of France to continue going after England, while England just took Denmark off of Germany. Germany's lost 2. I mean, this is the time when I think you might flip and take Belgium, just because, propping Germany up for the long term is just going to get you and no productivity for this.
I agree. And look, it's not only that he didn't take Belgium. He moves Picardy to Burgundy instead of Gascony to Burgundy. It's like, wait a minute, you're not even putting yourself in position. You could sell that as trying to help the Germans protect, which of course it would have potentially helped them protect if they still had Munich. Gosh, yeah. Some missed opportunities here. We're sounding like we're being negative here. It's easy for us to sit here and say this. We were not involved in the negotiations, but that's not ideal.
Yeah, and also, I think Russia's playing a really good game right now, and I think England's playing a really strong defensive game. And it's unexpected all of a sudden when you get Italy and Russia popping up and causing havoc in the center of the board that early in the game. So it's probably sort of unnerving, and it's just very challenging to deal with it. I think that we're going to see Germany retake Munich with French help right here.
I think in the last round, we saw Christian Brown take a kind of a similar approach where I believe they were Germany and moving very heavily way down into Austria. And it really caused some chaos and imbalance in either side of the theaters, made for an entertaining game. But very, very good for Hunter to take advantage of that and cause some chaos, which I do think will break in Russia's favor.
Yeah, maybe Christian's just one of those guys we call a chaos agent. That's what he thinks is fun. And, people play for different reasons. Some people play to be chaotic. That they actually enjoy that. They enjoy unhinging things.
Well, let's see what happens. Why don't we stay in the West?
France is continuing the anti-English activity, and as I thought would happen, they recaptured Munich. The story here really is that France is in a decision place, and they're going to kind of dictate a lot of what's going to happen with the rest of the West going forward. England's doing a good job defending, but we'll just have to see what France decides to do ultimately.
All right. So for our builds, let's see. It looks like England's going to get a build here from Denmark, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you build here? You looking for an army or a fleet?
I put an army down. Just send a statement. You're not getting anything. Go away. Fleet.
Yeah. Agreed. I totally agree with that.
And so does Maxim. So looks like we have Germany disbanding in Belgium, possibly because of the interaction that France and Germany had earlier, and they seem to be working together somewhat at least. Get the fleet build in Naples. Yeah, looks pretty straightforward. In the spring, let's go ahead and start in the east. David, we've got quite a few black lines, a lot going on here.
Yeah, the Austrians had gotten into Ionian. We didn't talk about that at the end of the last turn, but that was important here that because that's a forward unit that can be used, and it was used to help take Venice. And then the Turks go behind that. The Austrians retreat into Apulia, I think it is. This is just the Austrians have basically become a forward tip of the spear, so to speak, for the RT, trying to get up there and do what they can to sort of deal with the chaos agent. Maybe Hunter enjoyed the chaos agent while that chaos agent was alive, but Hunter's deal is with the Turks. And so and that means, and the Turks need to kill the Italians. So that's what's going to get ready to happen here. So I'm sure Hunter's using his diplomatic relationship with Austria to help that happen as well. They do lose Silesia. Germans are trying to fight back there a little bit. So good for them.
Yeah, and the story here for me is Irish Sea to Mid-Atlantic. The rest of this seems pretty reasonable. Strong defense to protect Denmark. You've got to do that. Moving your armies around the island it doesn't really matter where they are, but I'm not sure why you go to the Mid-Atlantic and to the Norwegian Sea simultaneously. Gascony can defend Spain from Italy if Italy goes that direction. So as France, you're not making a friend in England, and you weakened your attack. You get the North Sea, but you just lost Holland as Germany. I love that.
I suspect that's just the effect of being frustrated with that army build. Like, nope, not getting anything. I don't want to sit here and waste that unit. I'm going to go find something productive for it to do.
I mean, the French are in Norwegian and North Sea.
That is definitely bizarre. I will say. I'm excited to see if London goes to the Channel.
Well, let's answer that question.
Nope.
It does not. But Mid-Atlantic does.
I tell you what, goodness. Maxim built that army and then didn't use it to defend himself, Doug. It just, wow.
Yeah, he did the right thing, but moving the army to Wales, that didn't help. But let's acknowledge that this is actually a pretty good tactical play, as it turns out, for France, because they get on the other side of the island. So that did end up working pretty well. I would have liked to stay in Liverpool and Edinburgh at the same time and force him to, cut supports. And they piffed the English fleet as well. So he doesn't have a disband. He's down to that's going to be his loss.
Yeah, that was a good turn for the FG. I was not expecting that a couple turns ago, and they've done a good job.
Well, it was sort of kind of a good job, but look at what Baltic did.
Yeah, they got Holland.
Kiel?
Yeah, they retake Holland. Germany just is losing two here. He's losing Kiel and Belgium. So the beneficiaries of this fight with England are really Russia. Russia walked to Norway. It was a great turn for Hunter.
Absolutely. And he's still got friendship with the Turks. He's still got friendship with the Austrians, from what I can tell.
This could be a really big result for Russia going forward. If he's slow playing it, he's going to take Berlin as well. This is going to be a monster result for Hunter.
Yeah, no, anytime Russia's involved, it's always a little precarious because you're trying to defend both sides of the stalemate line. But that would involve people actually getting together and trying to be anti-Hunter, and I don't see a whole lot of evidence of that going to happen anytime soon.
All right, so we've got a fleet north coast from Russia, and lost 2 of those fleets that were built earlier in the game by Germany. England disbands in Denmark. Looks like everybody wants Russia to have complete control of Scandinavia. France builds Fleet Brest and Army Marseille. We've got Fleet Khan in Turkey. Russia, is that good game, Russia? No, Russia's still got Rome and Tunis.
You mean in Italy?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Italy. Yep. Anything stand out here?
No, except that we haven't said enough. Garry really did some good moves here in the last 2 turns to really put himself in good position. Probably didn't say that enough even.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna go cover Spain. It's a good fleet build for him right there. He definitely needed it, and he put him in the right places, the army and the fleet.
Okay, and we've got commitment from Russia to stay on this northern Scandinavia game. So, all right, let's start in the east, David.
The Turks continue to move, just march forward, and the Italians do nothing to stop them, because he's decided that his chaos agency needs to be in Iberia if he can make it work somehow. So here come the Turks and the Austrians and the Russians who've gotten into Berlin. They of course went to Barents. So I guess RT with an Austrian junior partner so far. Germans get piffed in Bohemia of all places. So really, way to go east. They probably have to do that given how well France's position was, or how good France's position was. That's time to turn over to Doug when talking about France's position now.
Well, I just want to praise the defense by Maxim. We just gave him, the hard time last turn, but he did a good job here. Strong turn, defended everything that he could do. You sacrifice the North Sea, but you get back into Edinburgh in a place where you can hold on to it. So nicely done. France is doing what France has to do here. I wonder when the time is to turn on Germany, because that the sucking sound into the center of the board is just pulling more and more Russian forces in. He's got to defend.
There's almost no Germany left to turn on.
I know. I think maybe let's call Germany France's agent of chaos here, because popping down into Tyrolia and all that kind of stuff is just meddling with the other side of the board to France's benefit.
Yep. So speaking of sucking units to the middle of the board, is this the time for Turkey and Russia to say goodbye to Austria?
I don't think they need to yet, to be perfectly honest.
No, I don't think so. Look at, Turkey is in the Tyrrhenian Sea. He's, moving up the boot. Why would I want to stab Austria at this point? I don't have the armies nearby to get up to the center of the board. I'm perfectly content to leave those Austrian armies there to do that job.
Unless the Austrians really are getting ready to build from taking Naples. Now, if that's true, you don't really want them building because they might get some ideas of their own.
Can't have that.
No, we can't. They can't have their own ideas. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, David, let's find out if we've got ideas of their own. What do we have?
He's gonna keep Naples. Now, I'm sure that was with the acquiescence. Wait, what? The Turks left Rome. That's interesting. But took Tunis, but left Rome to keep well, I guess if the Italians are going to bonsai to the west, you might as well keep them alive. So I guess that's what happened there. I mean, the thing about the building with the Turks is you're building way back in the rear. So if you're really trying to make progress, I guess you keep the Italians alive. But otherwise, look at all those black arrows going west.
Yep.
Bohemia to Munich.
And also, France finally turned on Germany here. England, this is that second army at home stopped France. Russia's intervention, or support has been, decisive for this. And Hunter now has weak powers all across the West, nobody attacking him still, and everybody sort of pushing West away from him. Now the question is just, when do you drop the hammer?
Well, speaking of the hammer dropping, Brian's question now becomes even more relevant. The Austrians are building 2. I was not expecting for the Austrians to end up with Munich. I mean, that makes them less of a minor player here. I mean, they're literally building 2.
Yeah, and they could be the only power to really slow Russia down at this point. I mean, Russia is just rolling.
I'm not convinced they will, though.
I mean, Russia helped put Bohemia into Munich. I mean, they're definitely working together here.
Yeah.
Maybe their idea here is we'll go dig Turkey out and get a big result. That's not necessarily in Russia's interest at this point, but could be.
All right. Well, we've got we say farewell to Owen in Germany. Played a hard-fought game. We've got Russia building 2, army in Warsaw, another Northern Fleet in St. Pete. We've got 2 Austrian builds that are close to the line, and I missed this. Where did England get? Is it a rebuild for England? Or did they pick up
it has Denmark.
Gotcha. There it is. Okay. So yeah, Fleet, Liverpool. Anything stand out here?
Well, we didn't call it out last time, but Italy got into Spain. And France should have been able to stop that. So a bit of a tactical error, and that's going to cost France. France is
actually very costly, particularly given the Turks leaving Rome.
Right. Exactly.
Two Chaos Agent fleets.
Yep. You got 2 Chaos Agent fleets, and you don't have enough armies at home at this point to protect against yourself. All your units are up north. France is going to crumble fast.
Bye-bye Portugal right now, maybe.
Yep. Portugal and Marseille are both going to fall this year. And probably
Marseille? Who do you think gets Marseille?
It doesn't matter. I don't know.
It depends on the tactics. If they give it to the Italians, then the Austrians or somebody will take Rome out, so that he doesn't get to build.
Yeah, and Munich should be driving to Burgundy right now and rotate the Russian Kiel and Berlin so that you're bringing the more armies down and just keep rolling west because France can't stop you. And England is stuck at home still.
Gosh.
All right. Well, let's
at some point this Eastern Alliance is going to have to break down, though. I mean, it's not going to happen right in the spring of 2006, apparently, though.
Well, I will say it looks like Hunter's love for England is going to end soon because he's positioning now to take those English dots for himself after France did all the work of locking him in. So good sense of timing here.
This Russian fleet in Helgoland, that is going to be deadly.
Yep. That's a great position. How often do you hear the words Russian fleet in Helgoland?
It's usually not good for Germany, and since Germany's dead, I think that proves the point. Yeah.
And it looks like Austria is continuing enrolling. David, what do we have in the east?
Yeah, look at, again, more black arrows going west. The Turks going all west. The Italians do go to Portugal. We'll see if the French were able to take that back in the fall somehow. The answer on who gets to take Marseille is that the Turkish army is convoyed there.
That's awesome.
I did not see that coming, and I love it.
The Turkish army in Marseille. This game is awesome.
That is fantastic. Nicely done, Christian.
Gary's over in England. He lives in England. He's in England right now. Or actually, a couple of hours ago, he was yelling into the screen. No.
I mean, France has lost Marseille, is gonna re-lose Spain, is gonna probably lose Holland as well. I mean, this is a devastating turn of events for France. I'm sorry, Garry. It's not good.
Let's go to the 30,000 foot view just a second instead of talking about these particular moves. Here's another example of strong alliance play under even a tribute system. Strong alliance play destroying the stalemate line. We'll see what it means and who benefits from it, but that's, again, one of those things you won't necessarily expect from a system like tribute.
Hunter is doing a fantastic job here. I mean, he's leading very significantly. I mean, he's got a 2-center lead over Austria, with centers sort of in the bank, so to speak. And look how out of position Austria really is. He needs to keep building in order to protect himself for the long term. I still think that Hunter is in a driver's seat for a big result here. I mean, even much bigger than he's currently sitting.
So clearly Hunter's in the driver's seat. Is there anyone, David, is there anyone left on this board that could challenge him for a board top?
Wow. I mean, in the current diplomatic situation, clearly no. I mean, could AT turn on Russia? I mean, maybe, given the right situation. If they happen to be building better than Russia's building a particular turn, Russians don't get lucky against the English later on or something. But I'm having a hard time coming up with a good argument, honestly. Hunter's just in a great position. I mean, could something else happen? Yes. Is it likely for something else to happen? No.
So, fall of 06. David, why don't you lead us off here?
Yeah, the Italians keep Portugal. Of course, they've lost Spain. The Austrians go ahead and take them out of Rome. Otherwise, the armies continue to march. The Austrian armies march west. I mean, there's an Austrian army in Burgundy, but look what the Russians are doing. The self-bouncing Galicia, because, I got to make sure you're not going to hit me there. Yeah, but now the Austrian armies are going west. The Russian armies are staying put. Wonder what that could possibly mean for the future. Now the Austrians, not only are they sort of in advanced position, the Russians are behind them. But otherwise, Doug, this is your deal here, because the East doesn't really have much going on. They're all in the West. So
there is no West.
Well, there is, but it's part of the East now.
This game, I mean, at this point in the West, this is just tactics. Okay, it's pushing the tactics. What's happening in this game is Russia's positioning themselves for a monster result. Hunter is actually a threat to solo this board if he times it right against Austria, because of just how far out of position Austria is right now. The West is all tactics at this point.
Yeah, I don't think at this point in the game the question is, can anyone else top the board? I'm wondering if anybody else can stop Hunter from soloing. I think it's that time of the game.
It is a time of the game. It can still be done, though, and George is good enough player. I don't know Dave as well in Turkey, but George certainly knows how to move units around. So It's still going to be. I mean, Hunter's in a great position, but if
England's going to get a build as well. Look at the convoy to Brest. That's an interesting, hey, can we work this out? We got to stop these guys or we're both toast. Probably a little too late. But, I like, countries cooperating to try and slow the process down.
Man, this was a fall turn. The French didn't even try to defend Holland, right? They just sort of marched west for no good reason. Maybe they've given up somehow. I mean,
sometimes, I don't know why you would not do that, but sometimes you just get demoralized.
Yeah, that's right. I think that must be what it is. And gosh, considering how good his position was at one point in the game, wouldn't you be I would be demoralized at this point if I was the French.
Well, let's see what they build.
All right, so we get. What do we get? So we've got another Northern Fleet in St. Pete. That is commitment. We've got an army in Moscow, another Turkish fleet. We see a disband of the Italian in Lyon. France is just decimated, keeping Fleet Spain, Mid-Atlantic, and English. Did England not have a build? Did they say? They lost Denmark. They lost Denmark. Okay. Oof. So rough turn. So yeah, I mean, Hunter's just going to keep rolling up north. Like there is nobody else that has the fleets to stop him at this point.
Nope.
All right. So let's go ahead and go to the east quickly, David.
Albania, Albania. Those of you who have been watching DBN live streams this summer know that this has become an inside joke. If you don't know what else to do, send all your units to Albania. It's a perfectly legitimate place. But otherwise, the French lose Greece. The Italian fleets continue to march west. The Italian fleet does go into Naples. I mean, I guess that was going to happen. Look at the Austrians now realizing, maybe I better move back a little bit. So, or maybe they're just repositioning because they're actually not moving back in the west now that I look at it. Wow.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's a reposition because, I mean, Austria's picking up too.
It must be a reposition.
Yeah, I mean, this game is the story, like the AR alliance here with Turkey. Let's see where it goes. I note under all those red arrows that the channel snuck into London, but I don't think it's a permanent thing forever here.
We'll find out.
Austrians are in Paris. Again, how often do we get to say that?
Yeah, Paris and Belgium. Normally, if I'm
07, it's one thing to be in Paris in 1912 after some gigantic fight, but in 07.
Normally, if I'm Austria and I've got units in Belgium and Paris in 1907, I'm feeling great. But I don't think I'm feeling great as George right now.
I don't know. He's big.
Yeah, we'll find out. So let's stay in the West. What do we see?
That's a lot of stuff there. It's a little hard to see with all the arrows what's happening there. But, really what the story is, again, for me here is what's happening in Russia and how fast are they driving down there. It kind of feels a little bit like in the West, tactically speaking, Hunter is sort of slowed down, maybe to not freak out the other folks. But, they took the Austria and Turkey just took the mid-Atlantic. They're just continuing to push west into France. So again, it's really, this is a tactical game at this point in the West. And the question is, at what point does the alliances, do they break or do they just call a draw?
Well, the Russians could have taken North Sea and they didn't do it. You're right. That's intentional slowdown on Hunter's part.
Yeah.
And look, and as far as the East goes, there is one move that matters here, which is Moscow to Ukraine.
Definitely that matters.
We'll see what that means, if it means anything.
Yeah, we also continue to see Austrian progression into now Picardy. So
I thought Tanya Gill was the only Austria allowed to take things like Brest and Paris. I only thought Tanya was allowed to do that when she plays Austria. But apparently George would like to do it too.
George does play a good Austria. All right, so for our builds, we say goodbye to the army in Brest, the fleet in English. So it looks like the sole French unit remaining is the fleet in London. We've got a couple of builds from Austria and an army in Caen. All of those seem sensible. Anything stand out?
Nope.
All right. Let's go to the east this time. David, we've got a little action.
Well, the first thing that hits me is inaction. You build an army in Caen and you hold, and then your army in Bulgaria holds. What was the point of building that? I mean, if it looks like there's going to be an a fight between the Austrians and the Russians, which was what it was sort of looking like, why are you holding? So interestingly, the Austrians had moved down to Apulia and over to Venice to try to defend themselves against what? Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not a complete. For a minute, I thought it might have been a Turkish NMR, but no, they moved the units over in your neck of the woods in Iberia, Doug. But they just everything else held. Maybe they got to the end of the order writing phase and didn't have time to submit the orders or something.
It's possible.
They did support the movement of Austria, though.
Where?
Turkey. We can go to the next season pretty quickly here. Russia decided to make their attack on England at this point, which is sensible. I'm not sure what the slowdown was. I'd be curious. But I actually want to flag an opportunity here right now. If Turkey wants to stab Austria, they're in pretty decent position to at least take Spain and Portugal. From there, maybe you just drive up your fleets, hold the West and then try and take out Austria. I don't know. At some point,
that would have been a really good move if he had moved his other units in the Mediterranean to help support that attack.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens in the fall.
All right, go ahead.
A lot of holds again. Are they like calling the game? Is that what's happening here?
Well, we can see that the game is over in spring of 11. This is 08. So this game goes for another 2 years.
I mean, are they just playing out the string and committed to the alliance? In which case, we could probably kind of go forward.
It certainly looks like it, Doug. I think you're right. It certainly looks like it.
All right. Well, let's play through, see if we get any major changes here. So we've got the disband in Skag. We've got the army in Smyrna, or the fleet in Smyrna. Continuing on. Looking at the West. So Austria and Turkey are ready to draw this game. Looks like maybe Russia isn't. Is that your take?
Well, Russia's moved Romania to Albania. They're having some fun, which is good. I mean, I think it's pretty entertaining. But if you'll note, they're still making the play for Edinburgh. Russia is going to call this game when he gets all the dots that he wants to make sure that he's topped the board. So, I think that's just what's happening over there.
And maybe the Austrians and the Turks just figured, yes, he's going to top the board. Let's just get this over with.
Yeah, feels that way.
Could have been a deal for a while now, actually.
All right,
yeah,
so
that's clearly what's happening.
Continuing.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a nice little Turkish fleet in Liverpool. That's always fun.
Indeed. And London will fall next year. And there you go. I mean, Russia could make a play for it. Drop down to Armenia.
So Russia is at 12 right now. Is there any chance that Russia solos from here?
I don't think he wants to. This is a tournament with a top board, so he probably doesn't need to solo. Did he play in round one? I think he did, didn't he, Brian Hunter?
I don't recall, but I believe so. Yeah, I believe he has points.
He did also. So he probably just assumes this result will get him on the top board. So why does he bother worrying? Now, I would never do that because to me the solo is the holy grail, and I don't care what happens tomorrow. I'm going to get the solo today. But not everybody thinks that way. So maybe he's just done with the game. Apparently he is. We know the game ends in a year.
All right. So, yep. We've got collusion, a little bit of movement down here just in case. Continuing on. Everybody holding. And I believe, yep, this is where we end the game.
I mean, the surprise.
I'm sorry, Doug.
Yeah, the surprise for me was they actually put the Austrian in London instead of Russia taking it. So Hunter must have just said to George early on, like, they clearly had a mutual top because Hunter didn't have to take that. He could have been at 15 if he wanted to be right now.
The interesting thing about this whole thing, and Brian, maybe you were getting ready to say this is not a tribute game. You want to leave the little guys alive. That actually gives you more points than taking the centers out. So this game was played as if it was under some other scoring system, like Carnage or something. Because
I don't know how many points Hunter had, but I mean that could be it. Is hey, I've got the 37 points that I need to make it to the top board, and that's that. I feel like that's going to be enough. George, you've been a good ally. I can't remember if George had points either. I don't think George had points. So maybe that's playing the tournament rather than the board itself.
Just heard from the producers, George had 24 points, and Hunter also had points. He had 38. He was in 5th place to start this. Well, so it sounds to me like they both decided to try and put themselves on the top board with good results.
Yeah.
Well, and again, would you have expected any of that under a tribute scoring system? Maybe this whole thing was an experiment over with this kind of system, and you're going to have a top board in tribute. What does that mean? And maybe it is going to mean when people play it out a lot more shared board tops. Who knows?
I always say that tournament diplomacy is a variant, and the main variant everyone needs to keep in mind is that you are playing one very long game to make it to the top of whatever tournament scoring you've got, and I think this is a really good example of playing that tournament scoring.
Yeah. That could very well be, and good and well played by all of them, considering maybe this was the deal for a very long time.